There's a huge difference between a smoker who says that they are trying to quit and someone who calls themselves a non-smoker. Studies show that the person who shifts their identity has a much higher success rate. We're going to apply that exact same psychology to your leadership. Instead of just trying to act differently in board meetings or with your team, I'm going to teach you how to use neuroplasticity to literally wire your brain to step into becoming a more strategic leader in 2026 and beyond.
Welcome to Leadership Mindset 2.0. Practical neuroscience and psychology to transform you from a tactical doer into a strategic leader. Here is your host, former social entrepreneur of the year and coach to some of the world's top executives, R. Michael Anderson.
Hello leaders, Michael here, and welcome to 2026. Now there's a reason that the brain likes to start new chapters, because it can get a fresh start. And that's what we're going to do here now today. We are going to give you a fresh new start to the new year. And what we're going to do is we're going to work on the way you can make the deepest transformation the quickest by changing your identity. Now, we've all probably had New Year's resolutions that we made, and they maybe have made it a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or maybe a month or two into the new year. Or maybe even through the year, we have different goals. Oh, I want to micromanage less. I want to be more strategic. There's nothing necessarily wrong with behavioral goals like that, but they don't drive true long-term change. What does is shifting your identity. So in this episode, we're going to talk about identity shift. We're going to talk about how you can integrate and implement an identity shift right now here on this episode. We're going to talk about why it works from the neuroscience and psychological perspective. And just like everything else, we're going to learn to use it for ourselves. And because this is psychology and neuroscience, we're going to learn to help coach other people that are on our team, in our lives, whoever it is, through an identity change themselves. So let's get started there. Have you ever met somebody who maybe you hadn't seen them for a couple months or a couple years, and they just seemed like they were a different person? It's not that they did one thing or two things differently. It's that they spoke differently. It's that they showed up differently, that they had a different presence about them. That's most likely because they had a deep down shift in their identity. So let's talk about what an identity is, just so you're really clear. Now, we all have multiple identities. And identities aren't bad, they are good, because it's the way that the mind and the ego, and I'm going to talk more about the ego in different episodes. The ego isn't bad, the ego is very necessary. We just have to make sure the ego is working for us, not against us. And just like anything else, identities can work against us, but they can really, really work for us. Because right now, you and me and everybody else, we can get stuck in identities, which slow our progression, slow our evolution, slow our leadership down. Now, let me explain to you, let me give you a real-life example, well, semi-real-life example of what an identity is. Say you're at a family gathering, family reunion, Christmas, whatever it is, and there's a bunch of family around. You walk into one room, and it's all the kids. Everybody in there is under 12 years old, and you're the only adult. And one of the kids swears. Now, you're the adult in there, so what do? You're assertive. You say, hey, we don't swear in this family, don't use that word, what other words can you use, etc. You basically take charge and coach the kid. Yeah, that's what you should do. And then you walk into the other room, and your grandparents are there. Now, think about when you're around a bunch of kids, you feel one way in your body, you talk, you do different actions, but then you walk, and then there's your grandparents, and maybe some of your aunts and uncles, maybe your parents. You feel different. Because you're the youngest one there, you're used to them growing up around them being in charge. And then say a 12-year-old walks in and they swear, you probably don't say anything because you're around your grandparents and your parents. It's the exact same situation, just from one room to another, literally 10 seconds, 30 seconds apart. But it changed your behavior, it changed how you acted, which is normal. Think of all the identities you have. You have an identity as a son or a daughter or a kid. You have an identity probably as a brother or sister. You have an identity as a spouse or a partner. You have a different identity when you're with your kids or your nieces and nephews. You have an identity probably when you're around your boss, you're maybe around an investor, you're around different CEOs, when you're around people that report to you, you act and speak a bit differently in all these different situations, which a lot of times is good. You need to do that. And that is how we adapt and we survive and we change. There needs to be a different type of conversation between different people. These are all okay, but just like anything else, when we reflect on each of these, when we realize what is working well in these identities and what's not working well, then we can shift them and make them work for us even better, even more effectively. I heard one time that if you're, for example, trying to quit smoking, if you've ever met somebody who's trying to quit smoking, and what they say is, I'm not going to have a cigarette because I'm trying to quit smoking, their identity is that they're still a smoker who is trying to quit. Now, if I was a smoker, I don't want to be a smoker. So a shift in identity would be for them to say, hey, I'm a non-smoker. I don't smoke anymore. There's a massive difference between being somebody who's still doing something trying to stop it and who's already chosen to stop it. And the studies have shown that the people that in that situation who say, okay, I'm a non-smoker, have more success of quitting cigarettes than people that say, hey, I'm a smoker trying to quit. What does this mean for your leadership? Well, as a leader, 99% of the time, you have learned to play into this identity of somebody who is really, really good at getting things done. You have attacked problems when they showed up. You have taken massive ownership of everything around you. You are probably, and this is, I'm talking about myself as a doer, so you're probably the same way. Because as I was a really, really good corporate employee and I founded my first business, I would just do everything. Anything that would come, I would do. When I started to have employees or a team, when there would be something difficult, I would jump in and do that to free them up. And I was just doing. And I worked a lot and I was really, really successful through my hard work. You are probably the same thing. Now, what's happening is you're getting promoted or you're scaling your business if you own the business. That type of behavior, it's not really leadership. It is you are the chief doer. I got to remember that, chief doer. And what happens is you are probably getting stretched more and more thin. You are getting overwhelmed. You're getting exhausted. Your team is starting to depend on you for everything. They are not empowered. They are not taking the right type of initiative. They are not growing as leaders. And so you are starting to see cracks. Your team may not be performing to what they need to be performing. You aren't getting the strategic things done. And so what do? Is you work harder. Because that in your whole life, this doer identity has given you great respect from other people. It's got you promoted. It's scaled your business. It's scaled your team. It's scaled your career. It's helped you make more money. So what subconsciously you learned is this doer mentality, this get it done, this get my hands dirty done mentality equals your success. Now, once you're in leadership, your subconscious is telling you when you get under stress or you get under all these different types of situations to lean into that doer mentality, that doer identity, and you're getting yourself stuck more in this doership. That is how your identity is holding yourself back, and that is why you are in a way addicted to this identity. So we have to wean you off this identity. And when you play outside of your current identity, your ego doesn't like it. Your ego doesn't like change. And it's like, oh my gosh, for the last 5 or 10 or 20 years, I've gotten such good pats on the back. People have looked up to me. Again, I've had upward momentum in my career. I've scaled my business. So what are you telling me I'm not supposed to do these things? I'm the superstar. I'm better at doing things than everybody else. I like that. I like that people look up to me for doing those things. But that's what's holding you back. So we have to shift that one. Another common identity I just want to show besides the doer, besides the lone wolf, is that, hey, I'm just one of the guys, one of the gals, one of the people. I'm really liked by everyone. In my past career was mostly as a programmer, and I wanted to be like the business owner who is actually just a programmer and owned a business. That's not the worst thing in the world for like recruitment, for having empathy for what they went through, though what we also have to realize is that we were part of the group. We were palling around with everybody, friends with everybody. But when you make it to leadership, you want to be friendly, and it's not bad to be liked, but you're not there. Your goal is not to be liked. Your goal is to be effective. Your goal is to grow people. Your goal is to coach people. Your goal is to sometimes have difficult conversations. And there's a natural, you might say, barrier between a leader and a team, because if that gets too close, if you're too tight with people on the team and then they're not performing, they do something wrong, you have to coach them, give them feedback, that can be really, really difficult. And people don't really like that. Sometimes you have to make changes to people's schedule. Maybe they don't get a promotion, but if you're just trying to be friends with them, that can create a lot of issues. So that may be an identity that you are clinging on to, that you're struggling with how to get out of that. Some of this is conscious, a lot of this is subconscious. Luckily, what neuroscience tells us is there's something called neuroplasticity. And you might have heard this. This is like the neuroscience tagline: neurons that fire together are wired together. 90 to 95% of who we are is programmed by nature or nurture. There's this nature versus nurture debate. It's like, are you born with certain traits, or do your mother and father and aunts and uncles and whoever brought you up develop these certain traits? Honestly, it doesn't matter in this case, because 90 to 95% of how you act is either nature or nurture. We can argue about what percentage of it is which one another time. But what's important to know is 100% of it is changeable. So you have no excuse, dear leader, to change. And so what we want to do is, instead of working on the behaviors that you want to change, because a lot of people say, come with the behaviors, again, like, hey, I want to micromanage less. I want to set better boundaries. I want to be more strategic. Let's have you work on your identity and identify your current identities and shift your core identities. This comes from a methodology of psychology called psychosynthesis. We call it subpersonalities. And I'll give you an example of myself for this. And it's a bit of a embarrassing story. I'm American, and then I went, and during my corporate career, I grew up in America. I went to university in the US for the most part. And then I got a software job. The organization I was working for got acquired, so they moved me over to Europe. And then later I moved over to Singapore, and I was in charge of Southeast Asia for sales and marketing for this organization. And when I got there, I had a sales team and a marketing team. And look, I was young. I was early 30s. I was this high flyer. I thought I was so smart. I thought I knew how to do everything better than everybody. When I got to Singapore, new culture for me, obviously. And obviously the Asian culture is way different than the European and American culture, which is different, but not that different from each other. But then, Asia is a whole nother world. When I got over there, I'm like, I don't care what you're doing. We're going to do things my way. I know best. And I didn't listen to anything anybody else had to say. Needless to say, after 3 months of being there, my whole sales and marketing team quit except for one person. Yes, I was failing big time. I remember when the last key person quit, and it left us with pretty much no staff. At this time I smoked, I lived in Asia, so I was a smoker when I lived in Asia. I remember taking the elevator down, going out to the smoking area, and I was dejected. I was like, oh my God, Mike, you came over here, you had this amazing opportunity, and you are failing. I took this cigarette out, and I lit this cigarette, and I'm going to say, you know what, Mike, you can feel sorry for yourself for this cigarette. Cigarette takes 3 minutes to smoke? I said, you get 3 minutes to really feel like crap. Because, you did some stupid stuff here. So let's feel sorry for yourself for these 3 minutes. And then after you smoke this cigarette, let's have a chat. So I smoked the cigarette. I felt bad for myself. I felt like I really stewed in it for those 3 minutes. And then I put it out, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to let this define me. I'm going to bounce back hard. I know it's going to be difficult. I know it's not going to be fun. I know it's going to be humbling. I know I'm going to have to own it. And what I did is I envisioned myself with a Superman outfit on. And I envisioned myself and I got ready because I knew the next couple weeks and couple months, and especially the next day or two, were going to be tough. But I'm like, look, I can do this. I'm tough. I'm resilient. I'll work my butt off. And every time that I doubted myself or I'm like, this is tough, I just went back to that feeling of me in the superhero outfit. Because later that day, I had to tell the managing directors and I had to tell the owners what happened. And I also said, look, I got this. I know this isn't good, but I'm going to make this right. And for the next couple of weeks, because I was in management and leadership for the couple years before that, I went out and I did the sales calls. And I spent my off time recruiting a new team. And I spent the evenings doing the marketing. And I kept everything going while I replaced the team. And I really, really looked inwards to see what I had to change. And over the next couple months, we replenished the team with really good people. We started making sales. We hit our numbers. We sold the 2 largest deals for the Microsoft product we did in Asia Pacific over the next year with me and then with my team fronting it. And we got back on track. But we did that because I changed my identity. I don't know if I could have got through that really humbling, difficult period without changing my identity. That's what identities can do for you. Now, what I want you to do is reflect on your current identity. Pick an area where you want to change in 2026. Don't get too broad. Think of it, maybe you attend board meetings. Maybe you work with investors. Maybe you work with your CEO and your peers on the VP level. Maybe it's with your team. Think about how you want to have a different presence. You want to have more influence. You want to show up differently. What area of your life is that? And think about it. Just spend a minute or two with the behaviors you don't want to do. Maybe you are trying to be too friendly, liked too much. Maybe you're not assertive. Maybe you don't articulate yourself well in senior leadership meetings. So just take a minute. What are the things you want to change? And give that identity that you're currently in a name. Maybe it's tactical Mike. Maybe I go to board meetings, I'm a little scared. Maybe it's scared Mike. It's okay if it's a bit negative. That we want that to be tied to the negative. And what we want you to do then is create how you want to show up, how you want to feel, who this new you is. And maybe that's strategic Mike. Maybe that's powerful Michael. Make it simple. The first word that comes to your mind, it can be very generic. You don't want probably a really complex name. Whatever means something to you. And don't get too caught up. You can change it later if you don't like it. Now think about you. Think about the ideal you in those situations. How do you act? What are the thoughts that go through your mind? What are the new thoughts? And maybe it's, hey, I belong here. I have a lot to offer. They need me. I got promoted here for a reason. What about your actions? What about your speech? How do you show up? How do you communicate? Just do a little visualization or walk through what that is. How do you look at it? How does that look every day? How does that look in real life? How does that look maybe when you get challenged in a meeting? How do you show up? How do you react? How do you respond? Now, what you can do in this, and it's interesting, I've recorded some live coaching sessions that you're going to hear over the next couple weeks and couple months where I do this with somebody in real time. And when you catch yourself in the old identity, you can shift yourself into the new identity. It's really that simple. But now that you're doing this, now that you're creating this new identity, this new powerful, strong identity of how you want to show up, how can you put it into your everyday life? Because honestly, psychology is just repetition. I hate to break it down like this, but if you're 35 years old or 45 years old, your brain is working the same way for 35 or 45 years. Now we're doing a shift to it. Now, because we're doing a shift doesn't mean it takes 35 or 45 years to rewire your brain, but it takes more than 5 minutes. It takes repetition. So your new identity, how can you reflect on that every day? Maybe you take the tube to work, the subway or a train. Maybe what you do is every time that you sit down, get a seat on the train on the way to work, you spend, before putting in my podcast or reading something or whatever that is, you spend 30 seconds of just thinking of this identity and how you're going to show up in those situations. Maybe you put a small note on your mirror where you brush your teeth in the mornings. Mornings is the best place to do this because it sets you up for the day. And just to reflect, when you talk about the new identity, just feel it. Feel it in your body. Feel how, okay, yes, that confidence. Because there's a neurological link to how you feel in your body and making changes in your mind. So when you can link them, that's great. And then through the day, if you feel yourself, hey, you're in this meeting, maybe you're a little bit tired, you're going into the old you, the anxious Mike or whatever, just switch it around. It can be that simple. I told you this is going to be the simple, easiest, quickest way to do really deep change, and it is. But what you need to do is you need to work on this reprogramming. So think about that. How are you going to hold yourself accountable to that? How can you do that every day? And tell yourself 2026 is the year that you move into this strategic leader, to this powerful board member. Link 2026 to this change because your brain likes chapters like this. That's what you can do for yourself. Now, just like everything else, we learned this for you. How does it relate to your team? So you may realize somebody on your team, and it could be somebody in your team. It could be a peer of yours that you don't have direct responsibility for. It could be your CEO. It could be your kids. It could be your family. This is psychology, neuroscience. It works everywhere. But let's say there's somebody on your team and you need them to step up as a leader. You can start coaching them. First of all, you could teach them this whole thing. Let them listen to this podcast. That's one solution. Then talk about it with them and coach them in it. And in addition, if that doesn't work, or that's not going to work, or if you do that, it's all the little coaching. Whenever you see them, talk about, hey, in 2026, you show up like this. I need you to show up like this. Start calling them, hey, I need you to be my strategic leader. I need you to be my person that's going to hold people accountable. Give them something to be working on, and you can coach them to be that identity. Hey, I know this is new to you, but I believe in you. You can make this shift. And as your leader, as your coach, I'm going to help you make it. And just keep reminding them, again, you're reprogramming them. That's very powerful. And that's your role as a leader, is to help other people make those shifts as well. All right, everybody, welcome to 2026. I'm really glad we were able to work on identities. Really make sure you put this into action for yourself. And then also think, where do you need to put this in action in other places? Got so much good stuff for you here in this podcast in 2026, dear leader, and I can't wait to share it with you. And just remember, we deal with a lot as leaders. We talk on so much responsibility. So many people rely on us. So much stuff comes at us. But just remember, dear leader, no matter what you're going to have to deal with in this new year, I believe in you. You're remarkably competent. You have so many skills. You really care. No matter what happens, you got this.